Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You could find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. As always, I'm here to help you break down tonight's NBA DFS main slates on both DraftKings and FanDuel. If you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. If you're not already a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. You get access to the model you see here, as well as a single lineup builder, multi lineup builder, and we also have a private Discord server full of DFS pros to help you improve your game, which includes a 30-minute window leading up to each slate's lock where you can ask your lineup and slate specific questions. Without further ado, let's get into this slate. Pretty tricky slate to talk through, honestly. Just a lot of teams on back to backs, only 6 games. As always, I get a DraftKings and FanDuel window open. I'll kind of build lineups on each site as we talk through things. There are some early games, so just completely ignore those. That's the Nuggets at Knicks, Orlando at Clippers. We don't have to really touch on those at all. They're not on the slate, but we got 6 to go through. I got my injury report up as of 11:30 Eastern. Was kind of hoping we'd have more news, but we don't. So let's see what we can get through here. I'll try to lay out the scenarios as we're going to have to process them throughout the day. All right, so the first game on the slate here, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Toronto Raptors. Timberwolves are 9-point underdogs on the road. If that spread seems wide, it's for good reason. Anthony Edwards was carried off the court last night. He's going to be out of the lineup here. Obviously, major news. And yeah, on a back to back, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mike Conley sit, so we got to keep an eye on that one. But with Edwards out of the lineup, obviously they got rid of D'Angelo Russell at the trade deadline. There's just so much usage to go around now. And I think Nickeil Alexander Walker, as the model is suggesting here as well, is going to be one of the most popular plays on the slate. He's very cheap. I imagine he starts, but even if he comes off the bench, he's going to see a massive boost in usage here. So let's go ahead and add him on both sites. He's kind of your first core play of the day. Definitely someone you're going to want to get into your lineup. Very chalky, but I think it's going to be good chalk. He's just so cheap. It's going to be tough for him to fail in this situation. We should also see increased minutes and usage for guys like Torian Prince, Kyle Anderson, who's been priced up. Still like Anderson here, but he's definitely tougher to get to than he's been early in the season now that he's over 7K. Rudy Gobert, it is a back-to-back. I imagine Gobert will be in, but if Gobert sits and Naz Reid starts, Reid becomes a core play everywhere. So definitely keep an eye on the center spot here. It is the first game on the slate, so we will have this news and starting lineup, which is a good thing, obviously. We should see increased minutes for Jaden McDaniels usage as well. Jordan McLaughlin also going to be an interesting play here, but Nickeil Alexander Walker is certainly my favorite option. I think Torian Prince is cheap enough as well that I'm going to go ahead and pencil him into. Forward's often a tough position to fill, and I think on a 6-game slate that's going to be the case again here tonight. So a lot to like for Minnesota. Really, whoever is in this starting lineup is going to be appealing. Definitely keep an eye on that center spot and keep an eye on the guard situation with Mike Conley. If he's in, he's going to be great. If he's out, Jordan McLaughlin could get the start. He'd look outstanding here. Jalen Noel's missed a few games recently, so there's not going to be much for McLaughlin to compete with. Maybe an Austin Rivers gets to start. Never a player I'm excited to play, but if he does start, I guess you could use him in large field tournaments. But again, just to reiterate, the priority here is Alexander Walker, followed by Torian Prince. Keep an eye on the center spot. If Gobert's out, we got to go to Naz Reid. If Gobert's in, he's great. If Conley's in, he's great. But if he's out, we go to Jordan McLaughlin. Then Kyle Anderson and Jaden McDaniels are fine as secondary options. So opposite the Timberwolves, we have the Toronto Raptors here. No major injury news. Coloco's still questionable. Otto Porter's out. So this is just one of those teams kind of priced where they should be. When they're healthy, it's tough to prioritize anything. They certainly have upside. Guys like Siakam, whose price is now down below 9K, looks decent here. Fred VanVleet as well, 8,800 on both sites. I don't mind getting to him. Scotty Barnes, OG, Jakob Podol, all fine as secondary plays. We saw a huge game out of Gary Trent the other night. Very scoring dependent, wide range of outcomes, but at 5,200, I can see playing him in large field tournaments. So really, all the Toronto starters look good. Trent will, even if he comes off the bench, but it's tough to call anything a priority here just because they're healthy and priced where they should be. But it is a good matchup against the Minnesota team. That's certainly going to be missing Edwards here. All right, so we can move into the next game on the slate now. We have the 76ers at the Pacers. Sixers are 6.5-point favorites on the road in Indiana. 231.5-point game total here. So another situation where we're dealing with a back-to-back. I'll start with Philly. I haven't seen any news. I imagine Embiid plays on the back-to-back. Sometimes DK carries over the injury tags. I'm not seeing any here. So yeah, if you can get to Embiid, he's obviously outstanding. Massive, massive upside. He only played 3 quarters last night. Got around 70 fantasy points. So yeah, one of the best plays on the slate. Certainly, if you can afford him. And I think with all the value we have opening up in spots like Minnesota, he should be fairly easy to get to. I'm actually going to go ahead, be a little. Um, aggressive here and get Embiid into both my lineups. I think with Prince and Na, he's pretty easy to fit. See, we're still left with 6K per player, and that is with Embiid in there using up that center spot. James Harden's still a little bit too cheap on both sides. 9,800 on DK, certainly appealing there. Not sure I'd want both of these guys in the same lineup, that being Embiid and Harden, but they're both outstanding. Tobias Harris is fine. Tyrese Maxey's okay. Assuming DeAnthony Melton starts again, he's okay. But those are all really secondary plays. I really, really like Harden and Embiid. Harris, Maxey, Melton, all fine as secondary options, but really none of them are priorities. It's the two studs here in Embiid and Harden that I like. If one of them's out, the other would look outstanding. So just keep an eye on the situation as well. Another game we have locking at 7 Eastern. So while we don't have the injury report, we should have the exact lineup before the slate tips off. Over on the Indiana side of things, certainly some news we need to consider. We got Tyrese Halliburton out for a few games. Still no Benedict Mathurin. Chris Duarte's out as well. So the front court's healthy, which means there's really nothing we have to rush to there. But TJ McConnell, he's priced up, and he's been coming off the bench even with Halliburton out. But his fantasy point per minute rate's over 1 now, so I really like McConnell on both sides. He's a nice little run back. If you are playing Embiid, you get him at 6,100 on DK, 5,900 over on FanDuel. Certainly more popular over on FanDuel. But yeah, only point guard eligible. So I like McConnell on both sides. I'm gonna go ahead and put him in for now. I could see fading him if there are other good value plays opening up, but as things stand, I just think he's kind of tough to get away from. Um, so yeah, we got McConnell in. We should see extra usage for guys like Nora, Heald, Turner, even in the front court, Aaron Naismith. But it's really tough to call any of them priorities. Andrew Nemhard should get the start again at point guard with Halliburton out. Like I said, McConnell likely coming off the bench. If you don't want to play McConnell, Nemhard is a logical GPP pivot, but since they're the same price, McConnell's just a better fantasy producer historically. Obviously, we get a larger sample side with him, as Nemhard's a rookie, I believe. So yeah, I like McConnell a lot here. If you don't want to go to him, maybe pivot to Nemhard. I actually played both in a few lineups the last time the Pacers were on the slate without Halliburton, and it worked out okay. Tough matchup with Philly here, though, so I don't want to jam too many Pacers. As long as Turner's in, he's good. If he's out, always look to Isaiah Jackson if he gets the nod, but I don't think we see that situation here. So yeah, really like TJ. Don't mind Nora, Heald, Turner, Naismith, but only TJ I really consider a priority. And then if you don't want to play him, you don't like that chalk, maybe pivot to some Nemhard. All right, moving into the next game on the slate now. Taking a look here, we got this 8 o'clock window, and this is an annoying game. We got the Warriors. Let's see. The Warriors are at the Grizzlies. Grizzlies are 1.5 point favorites at home. 233.5 point game total here. Two teams on back to backs. So this is annoying. We don't have any injury news here. Draymond was out with a suspension. I imagine he's going to be back tonight. Wiggins is going to be out for the foreseeable future. Maybe Kuminga gets the nod again. If he starts alongside Draymond, I think he's fine. Certainly not as appealing with Draymond back in the lineup. But it is a back-to-back, and Kerr has been known to rest his guys at times. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Curry or Thompson rested here, especially with Draymond having rested last night. He's going to be on fresh legs. They can lean on him a bit more. But let's just assume all these guys are in for now. I like Curry. I like Thompson. I like Draymond. Don't mind DiVincenzo. Kevon Looney went off last night in a big, big way, but that was because Draymond was out of the lineup. Don't think we can rely on him for a repeat performance, but in large field tournaments, he's okay. But yeah, we're not seeing a ton of ownership going to any of these guys except for Dre. He does not like Dylan Brooks. There could be some beef here, so proceed with some caution. Would it be shocking to see him or Brooks ejected for just getting out of hand? But I don't really think you can bake that into your projections. So yeah, Green's a good play. But he's the only real priority here. I do like Clay and Steph in tournaments. Obviously, they carry massive upside. All right, over on the Memphis side, so yeah, the prices are still broken here for Memphis. Tyus Jones's price went down on FanDuel, which is absolutely inexcusable. It is a back-to-back, but how can you not play 6,500 Tyus Jones? Still no John Morant for the next few weeks, and yeah, over on DK as well. I want to get to Tyus Jones. I already used up all these guard spots. I think we can move Nod down to shooting guard, so you can move Tyus Jones up there and still have that utility spot open. That's probably how I'd build. But for the sake of the length of this video, I'll just leave him in utility for now. Also, like Desmond Bain here a lot on both sides. 7,800 on DK is pretty much inexcusable. Jaren Jackson looks good. Don't mind Dylan Brooks. Xavier Tillman on both sides, but especially on FanDuel, where you can play him at power forward. So you can get Embiid and Tillman and feel pretty good about it. You can also do it on DK, but like I said, you're going to kind of have to move some things around. You're going to move Na over to shooting guard, Tyus Jones over to point guard, and then you could get Tillman into your utility if you want to play him over there. But he's definitely a better FanDuel play, a little bit cheaper. You also get those points for blocks and steals. They score a little bit better over there. So the priorities here are Jones and Bain and Tillman on FanDuel. FanDuel only for Tillman. But Kennard, Jackson, Brooks are all solid as secondary options. Kennard's a little bit overowned in my opinion. He has been seeing enough minutes to justify rostering, but at the same time, very wide range of outcomes. Pretty high ceiling, but a very low floor. So not going to get to too much Kennard here. Going to have a ton of Jones and Bain though. I could actually see going ahead and adding Desmond Bain to this lineup. And I don't want to build a full lineup, but I mean, I really like how this is kind of coming along. So going to add Bain on both sites. Looks really good. Um, but yeah, two teams on back to backs. Keep an eye on that injury news. All the more reason to get into that Occupy Discord server where we'll be updating things throughout the day. The model adjusts in real time as well. So as these injury reports come out every half hour, if you wait 10, 20 minutes, you're going to see major adjustments. And as we get closer to lock, those adjustments happen even quicker. So definitely a valuable resource. Moving into the next game on the slate now, we have the Heat at the Bulls. The Heat are 3.5 point favorites on the road in Chicago. 216.5 point game total here. So the Bulls are on a back to back. They're not really a team that rests players on back to backs. Maybe Caruso sits tonight, which would be a boost to Beverly. If Beverly were to sit and Caruso would be in, that would be a boost to Caruso. Caruso kind of working his way back from an injury. Whenever he's out, you could look to Andre Drummond as a value play. For some reason, he gets more minutes. Obviously, these guys play very different positions, but they kind of like to keep that rotation tight. So Drummond gets his minutes even with Caruso in, but he gets more with Caruso out, even though they don't play the same position. So keep an eye on that. But really, the interesting plays here are that big three of Levine, DeRozan, Vooch. I think they're fine on both sides, but against Miami, really not a team I'm trying to target. So they're okay here. Nothing I'm really considering a priority. Just keep an eye on the guards. If one of them's ruled out, the other would look a lot better, and that is Beverly and Caruso. Over on the Miami side of things. Kyle Lowry's listed as questionable. No Cody Zeller. Then a bunch of G League guys are out, so nothing really to write home about there. So we get the big three of Bam, Hero, Butler. All look fine. Similar to Chicago, though. Tough to prioritize anything. Wouldn't mind getting to any of these guys. Don't like the price on Jimmy on FanDuel, but on DK at 8,500, he's certainly in play. Hero, wide range of outcomes, but floating around 7K. I think he's in play on both sides. And then Bam on a bio. Okay, center option. Center only, though. They took away that power forward eligibility on FanDuel, which kind of stinks because I don't want to get to him now. Much rather pay up for Embiid where I can. So Miami looks okay here, but really no priorities at all. This is probably my least favorite game on the slate to target, but I think the slate's going to kind of echo that, so you can maybe get some pieces from that one at low ownership. All right, we got a couple more games here to get through. We got Sacramento Kings at the Washington Wizards. Kings are 2.5 point favorites on the road, 236 point game total here. For the Kings, Trey Lyles is questionable. Kevin Huerter is questionable as well. I think Huerter is going to be out. I'd be very surprised if he played here. I think he has a minor injury, but they said they were going to be cautious with it. So if Huerter's out, that should increase the minutes for someone like Malik Monk. It should create usage for the rest of the starting lineup. Guys like Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes, who usually don't see much usage, could see enough of a bump to be solid fantasy options. If you're not getting to Embiid, I think Sabonis is probably the next best thing on the slate tonight. Like him a lot everywhere. De'Aaron Fox is fine. Way too expensive for me on FanDuel, but at 8,700 on DK, I think he's a solid play. Trey Lyles is in on DK. He's good at 4K. If he's out, like I said, Murray and Barnes are going to look a little bit better. So definitely a situation to keep an eye on. But a nice matchup here. Good game environment. Really like Sabonis if you can fit him. And you're getting him at a reasonable ownership compared to an Embiid. So that's probably a logical pivot. And then, yeah, like I said, Fox is fine. Better on DK. Everything else is kind of secondary, though. So over on the Washington side, this is another team on a back-to-back, so we don't have the injury news here either. We got Porzingis, Beal, Kuzma. If they're all in, they're all okay. Really nice matchup with Sacramento. very high ceilings. Kuzma 7,600 on both sites, way too cheap. Beal 8,600 on DK, better than he is on FanDuel, but I like him on both sites. And then Porzingis floating right around that 9K tag. He's going to be fine here as well. But this is a back-to-back. Wouldn't it be surprising to see one or more of these guys out? If you get any of that big three out, whoever's left is going to be excellent. So just keep an eye on that situation. Not a ton of great guard value on the slate other than maybe Tyus Jones and who else did we have? TJ McConnell. Both kind of mid-range plays though. If you're looking to get cheaper at guard, I do like Monte Morris as long as he's starting. Really nice matchup here with Sacramento, and he's been a pretty good fantasy producer this season. Gafford in the front court as a value center is in play, not someone I'm rushing to get to. It would take a couple of these guys being out for him to see enough usage for me to really want to play him aggressively. But as things stand, I like the big three. Don't really love them, but in a matchup like this, they all have upside. If they're all in, I imagine one of these guys is going to have a really good game. It's just tough to know which of the three it's going to be. All right, so we got one more game on the slate now. Making really good time today. I got a lot to do, so I'm talking fast. We get the Celtics at the Jazz. Celtics are 4-point favorites on the road, 232.5 point game total here. And what do you know, Boston? Another team on a back-to-back. So Tatum and Brown are both in, as I imagine. If either is out, the other guy is going to be outstanding. So definitely keep an eye on that. Marcus Smart had a pretty good game last night, as did Derek White. That was because Malcolm Brogdon was out. If Brogdon comes back in, that's going to take a hit into Smart and White's upside, but they're all three going to be decent options. If I'm guessing, and this is a total guess, I think we see one of Smart or White sit and Brogdon come back. And if that's the case, whichever two guards are in there are going to be appealing. Grant Williams drawing some decent ownership. It would take maybe someone like Al Horford being out. Horford said himself he wants to play, but I think they do rest him on the back-to-back. And with no Robert Williams, you're going to see more minutes for someone like Grant Williams. Blake Griffin could get the start at center. He's fine as a boom bust center play. Never someone I'm rushing to get to. In a matchup with Utah, it wouldn't shock me to maybe see them give Muscala a spot start, but that's not something we can count on. This is the last game on the slate. There is an hour. Block from when the prior games are locking, so we might have to play some guessing games here, but Boston's usually pretty good about reporting injury news early. So a situation to keep an eye on. Let's just assume everyone's healthy, in which case I like Tatum and Brown. But again, if one of those two are out, the other becomes excellent. The guards are going to look good here. If one of those three are out, the other two become excellent. And then if Horford's out, we're going to probably get some value in that front court, but nothing I really trust or consider a core play. Over on the Utah side of things, still no Colin Sexton. Jordan Clarkson is now questionable. So if Clarkson's in, he's okay. Really not going to want to get too much of him, though. This is a tough matchup with Boston. Olynyk, Markkanen, Kessler, all fine on both sides, but about priced where they should be. So really not prioritizing anything there. If Clarkson's out again, though, I think you could play some THT. His price is up, ownership way down. People are kind of sick of paying up for him, but he does have a very high ceiling. He's flashed 50-point upside at times this season. So if we get Clarkson out, I could see getting to some Horton Tucker. Otherwise, there's really just no priorities for me here on Utah, but definitely keep an eye on that news. So just to kind of talk through what we built so far, obviously with Anthony Edwards out, we're getting to a lot of Alexander Walker. Torian Prince is going to look good here as well. Enough value on the slate to easily get to someone like Joel Embiid, and then there's a lot of value in Memphis. They're still mispriced. Tillman, Bain, Jones, getting all of them over on FanDuel. TJ McConnell for Indiana with Halliburton out of the lineup. Pretty much the same over on DK. Alexander Walker, Bain, Prince, Embiid, McConnell, Jones. Still left with around 5K per player for those last two spots. But you got to keep an eye on the news for NBA. It is a very fickle game. Things change throughout the day. So the information I'm giving now could be valuable by the time the slate locks. But if we get a lot of injury news, some of these teams resting players on back-to-backs, things could change rather quickly and dramatically. So taking a look at ownership, pretty much spot on with what we're building. Embiid, Prince, Bain, Walker, Jones, and Gobert. If Gobert does rest and Reed's in, remember Reed becomes a priority. I'd actually play him over Embiid as a point per dollar play on FanDuel, but on DK you could play two centers. I would love to get to Embiid and Naz Reed. That is if Gobert is out. Gobert's good if he's in though. Gonna have to see some extra usage now with Anthony Edwards out of the lineup. Nothing crazy over on FanDuel. Looking at very similar ownership as we're seeing on DK. Sabonis, if you can't get to Embiid, I like a lot. Jason Tatum in a good matchup against Utah, solid there as well. Harden a bit too cheap. But once again, keep an eye on the injury news, everyone. Obviously, things could change throughout the day with so many teams on back-to-backs. As always, I'm Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. Follow me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Check the links in the description below to sign up today. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone, and make some money. Take care.